أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Dear Mu'minin and Mu'minat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our a'mal in this holy month of Ramadan, and on this Friday, Yawm al-Jumu'ah. It is the last period of time, the last hour, if you want, of Friday. One of the most recommended times to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and pray is in fact this hour. According to the hadith, Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha used to ask someone to monitor the sun as it's about to set on Friday, and she would ask somebody to monitor it for her so that she can actually do the dua before the sun sets on Friday, as it is one of the most recommended times to actually ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are special du'as that one could recite, like dua as-simat and other du'as, the ushurat and so on. Nevertheless, it could be a simple thing, simple dua that we say again from the heart. From the bottom of our hearts, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely for something in this hour of Friday, or this last hour of Friday, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us that and more. In fact, would grant us better than what we ask for. This is how generous and how merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. We have been discussing the real fasting, as-siyam, or the essence of fasting. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, the purpose of it is to gain taqwa, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And taqwa is in fact housed, or it is the home of taqwa is the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in the Holy Quran tells us in the ayah regarding sha'airullah, in the concept of hajj and so on, he says, وَمَن يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. It is the taqwa from the hearts. So again, taqwa stems from the heart. The house of taqwa is the heart, al-qalb. So if we want to achieve taqwa, it has to be a process of purification of the heart. It is not purifying the stomach, although that is a path to it. And what we eat and consume would certainly affect us in terms of our heart. It's a gate. But the goal is the heart. Tonight I want to, in fact, in the last few nights we spoke about the three stages: the fasting of the stomach, the fasting of the body, and most significantly the tongue being the most significant limb in our body, and it's the gateway it's the translator of the heart actually. Expresses the heart. The expression coming out of the heart is through the tongue mostly, and therefore fasting or psalm of the tongue is very significant. Purify the tongue from anything that is disobedient or displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last and the most significant level is the fasting of the heart, or sawm al-qalb. which is again the highest level in the hierarchy, and that's what we should mostly be focused and concerned about. And it is essentially the purpose of Sawm, because Sawm is to attain taqwa, and taqwa is in the heart. Taqwa is from the heart. Taqwa stems from the heart. Taqwa is not the action. Taqwa is the drive behind the action. Because if you do good with a bad intention, that's not taqwa. If I pay charity, but my intention is not for the sake of God, is that taqwa? That is definitely not taqwa. If I say some good words in order just to gain some fame, is that taqwa? That is not taqwa. So taqwa is in fact, it comes from the pure heart. And nothing will benefit us if we don't have the pure heart. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. So the goal of the entire process of fasting, the month of Ramadan, is actually to purify our heart. That is the goal. And that is the real fasting. From the beginning of the month I said the real fasting, that is the real fasting. The Sawm of the qalb, the fasting of the heart. Not the body, not the limbs, not the stomach. That is a byproduct, if you want. The byproduct of the fasting of Sawm al-Qalb is the fasting of the stomach, is the fasting of the limbs, and so on. But essentially the actual real fasting is the fasting of Qalb. So we said there are different levels within the fasting of Qalb. One is to abstain from sins. You know, this is in fact in the limbs, but when it comes to the heart, is to not want, to not intend sins, to not make those intentions, or to not have those desires. Okay, try and get to a level where we don't have the desire for sins. This is one level. Another level of Sawm al-Qalb is where it's no longer a matter of not desiring sins. It actually is, basically sins become something that we cannot stand. It is bothersome because we know it is sinful, because we know it's displeasing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because one reaches a level that the heart is connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I've shared with mu'mineen and mu'minat, if you have somebody whom you are very close to, it could be one spouse, you know, the wife or the husband. It could be some brother in Iman, could be blood brother. It could be somebody who you basically got really close to the level where you understand each other. You have a heart-to-heart connection, that you understand them. If you witness something around and you know that they dislike, immediately you know that you pick on it, and immediately you know that they will be uncomfortable. You know it. It's not something that you have to think twice about. This is when there's a heart-to-heart connection. If the heart is connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the heart immediately has that connection. When something is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't want it. It bothers us because this is displeasing our beloved. And when something is pleasing and something that God loves, we love it. This is essentially the product or the level of the purification of the heart, where qalb reaches a strong connection where it has nothing in fact besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll elaborate on that tonight. Before we get to that level, inshallah, I want us to look at a few things that we could do in order to help our heart purify from the intentions of sins and get to a level of, in fact, not liking them anymore, not even having those desires anymore. How can we do that? How can we achieve that? The reason why oftentimes our moral compass is off because of sins. And this is why the greatest thing in the month of Ramadan is abstaining from sins. Imam Ali alayhi salam, in the khutbah al-Sha'baniyah that he narrates from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Ya Rasulullah, ma afdalul a'mal fi hadha ash-shahr. What is the best thing to do in this month? He says, al-wara' an maharimillah. Wara is to basically have some sort of a feeling of disdain, that you don't want it, you don't like it, stay away from it. Not just not committing it, but stay away from it. There's a difference between ijtanibuh. Some people, using the ayah of the Quran about khamr and maisir, they say it doesn't say don't do it, it says avoid it. They don't understand the term ijtanibuh. Yes, ijtanibuh could be translated as avoid it, but ijtanibuh in reality is stay away from it. It's more than don't do it. One thing is to say don't do it. Another one is stay away from it, stay far from it. That's why even sitting at a table where people are drinking is haram. Even sitting at that table, you're not drinking, but somebody else is drinking at that table. That sitting at that table is haram. Why? Because it could lead to one being comfortable with it. Maybe eventually, God forbid, they may actually consume it. Therefore, when it is a matter of ijtinab, it's basically staying far from them. And that's the meaning of wara an maharimillah, that I don't want to go near them. That if you hear that, for instance, going to a certain area, people ask me, is it okay to go to the beach, for example? If the beach is going to lead to some sinful acts, looking at things that we should not be looking at, if we cannot avoid it, a mu'min will not go there. This is called wara. It's not that, okay, I will go there and I'll try avoiding, and then the first look concept, you look for the first time, an-nadra al-ula, so they look, and the nadra al-ula would last as long as it can, because it's one, and they say it's okay, first look is okay, but second look is not okay. All of that is not okay for a heart that's purifying for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and wants to stay away from maharimillah. Therefore, when an individual whose heart is in that level, al-wara here means I don't go there. There is a gathering, and I know people in this gathering sit and talk and backbite each other or backbite others, okay? I know that that's the nature of this gathering. What is wara an maharimillah? It's not to go there and not do backbiting, because you're going to hear it. And either you do it or you hear it, or you get influenced and you get involved with it and it becomes normal for you. Or al-wara here is I don't want to go there. Because if I go there, I'm going to be like them. I'm going to do it, or I'm going to hear it. And I've mentioned before, when it comes to ghiba, both the one who's doing it and the one who's listening to it are sinful. Whether you listen to backbiting or you actually do the backbiting, both are sins. So what I hear is I stay away from it. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be near those sins. One of the biggest problems that lead to, in fact, the heart losing that moral compass is sinful acts, and that's why we should stay away from them. Haram food, consuming what is not permissible, whether it be non-halal meat and so on, or more significantly, and I want us to all understand this, more important than making sure that the meat is halal is making sure that the money that you buy the food with is halal. That's more important. If you buy meat that's haram and you consume it, you're oppressing yourself, yeah? There's some level of oppression because it's not good for you and you're oppressing yourself. Essentially, anything that's haram is not good for you. So that's dhulm to yourself. What if I go and buy something with money that's not mine? What's haram money? If the ladies can keep it down, please. الأخوات رجاءً. Essentially, haram money is what? Haram money is money that's not yours. It is not yours, someone else's. So now you're oppressing yourself and oppressing someone else. There's more oppression. So which one is worse? If I go and buy meat that's haram and eat it, or if I earn haram and go and buy food with it, even if I buy bread with it at that point? You see where the problem lies? And if we eat haram, what's going to happen? If you feed your children haram, what's going to happen? Hadith tells us that their moral compass will be off. They would not recognize sins. It would basically be the gate for shaitan. There is a very famous story that there was a qadi, a judge, who was very straightforward and was never ever accepting any bribes from anybody. Never. And they wanted him to judge in favor of somebody or make a decision, some fatwa or judgment in favor of someone. No matter what they tried, it didn't work. So somebody said, I know what to do. They actually invited him for some food and they fed him haram meat. Now this is very important. We call this al-athar al-wad'iyya. That haram meat, although he did not know it's haram meat, it affected him. It had its effects on him to the point that he actually made a wrong judgment after it. Now some may suggest that accepting the invitation from a party in the case may be the reason. That could be, which means that food became haram for him either way. Whether it's the meat that was given to him that was haram, or the fact that food became a part of a bribing process. Imam Ali alayhi salam writes to one of his governors. He says to him, I heard that you were invited by the rich in your area. He had sent him to a city, and the man was invited by the rich. And he said, I was very disappointed that you accepted that invitation. Because those invitations, I'm here paraphrasing a little bit here or there. He said, because those invitations never come without strings attached. They invite you, they make you feel so good, they show you what they have in order for you to make some concessions for them, some special favors for them. In the end of the day, you're the governor now, so you're a very important individual for them. So essentially, that haram that person, that judge ate, whether it be because of the bribery aspect or because of the actual haram product aspect, either way, it affected him that he lost his moral compass and was able to commit a sin in his judgment. Again, this is the result of simple consumption. We think it's simple. Consumption of haram. Sometimes parents ask me, there are problems with children, teenagers and so on. They lost it in this society. Wrong things are happening. I tell them, have you made sure that you feed your children halal? Because if you do, it makes a difference. And if you give them some things that are shubuhat, doubtful, it will lead to doubtful situations. If you give them haram food, it would lead to haram situations. Wal-'iyadhu billah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be amongst those who are purifying our stomachs from haram and shubha. Any kind of doubtful things and any kind of haram things, we're purifying our stomachs, because that is the gate, that is one of the gates to the heart. This is why Sawm is effective with taqwa, and taqwa is about the heart. Sawm of the stomach is effective because you starve your body and make your heart thrive. That's the whole purpose of it. If we make sure that we understand that this is the purpose of Sawm, and we make sure that as we are abstaining from food, we are feeding our hearts reflections, knowledge, decisions, strong intentions happen in the month of Ramadan. Why do you think Laylatul Qadr is in the month of Ramadan? Or why is it that God chose the fasting to happen in the month of Ramadan, that Laylatul Qadr is in the month and the Quran was revealed in it and the destiny is in it? We have to fast all these days so that when we come to Laylatul Qadr, we have strong intentions and great decisions, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the best things that we would wish for with a pure heart, for the upcoming year to be a great year for us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to abstain from sins, purify ourselves and our hearts and limbs from anything that's doubtful and sinful. We ask Him to make us amongst those who listen to what's said and follow what's best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Yes.